Does Social Security add to the deficit? I got three answers to this. One, no, it doesn't add to the deficit. Two, there's a reason why a lot of people think it adds to the deficit. And three, if you can tell the difference between those two, you, I think, have a really good sense of Social Security's politics. So let's start with one. Social Security doesn't add to the deficit. Here's how it works: you pay taxes from your wages called a payroll tax, the Federal Insurance Contribution Act, or FICA. The tax from your wages goes directly into the Social Security Trust Fund. Who those taxes are collected from, how much is paid out in benefits, and to whom, and how those amounts and persons change every year, all of that is written into law in the Social Security Act. Congress has absolutely no say on any of that on a year to year basis. The only way Congress can change any of those mechanisms is if they amend the Social Security Act, which they have not really meaningfully done since 1983. In a lot of ways, Social Security is on autopilot. Whatever was written into laws in 83 is what they're doing now, and it automatically adjusts every year. Now, for a lot of those years since 1983, Social Security collected more in taxes than it paid out in benefits. This was intentional. It was financing on the front end the retirement of the baby boomers, basically having the boomers pay for themselves in retirement by collecting more. Everything that it held in excess, it kept in its trust fund on reserve. Now that the youngest baby boomer is 59 and the retirement is like mostly retired as opposed to mostly still working, Social Security is drawing down on its trust fund that it saved to pay for the boomers' retirement. Unfortunately, they didn't quite hit the mark. There's a shortfall over the 75 years. It's very surmountable if we make a few changes to taxes and benefits. And that is how Social Security works. And I did not once mention what Congress does in a given year. It has nothing to do with the deficit. It is a self finance insurance program. But, two, why do people think that Social Security adds to the deficit? This is a little roundabout, so you have to stay with me. The way that Congress works is that they take income taxes collected from households and corporations, and then they spend kind of on the non, there's lots of words for whatever they call the congressional spending, but basically their discretionary spending of what they can change every year. Unlike Social Security, Congress often takes in less than it spends out, and the difference in any given year of how much they take in taxes and how much they spend out via other programs is referred to as the deficit. It's the single year shortfall in Congress's finances. Now, if they have a deficit, that means they have to borrow their last bit of spending. So if they spend $100 in a year and they only took in like $95 in taxes, they've got to borrow the last $5. But Congress doesn't borrow the way that you or I do. The way that Congress borrows is that it issues treasury bills. Now, here's where the two sides meet. Social Security's trust fund is held as treasury bills because it's a really safe investment, which means that Social Security's trust fund's treasury bills have in fact financed the deficit. So Social Security doesn't add to the deficit, it finances the deficit through its excess reserves. In short, Congress has borrowed from Social Security. I think the reason why people think Social Security adds to the deficit is because right now Congress is paying it back. They're required to by law. There's no conspiracy, there's no getting out of it, there's no fuzzy accounting. They owe Social Security what they borrowed in treasury bills, and they are now annually paying more and more back. It's adding kind of to a larger and larger share of their total spending every year are these required payments on the debt that is going to all of its creditors, but one of the larger ones being Social Security. So, no, Social Security doesn't add to the deficit, it finances the deficit, and it does not, and Congress has borrowed from it, and now they're paying it back. But I think kind of the three, if you can understand the difference between these two, you understand Social Security's politics. That's because, the way that we all experience Social Security is basically how the program operates most of the time. I pay a tax that I know is written into law, and I'm going to get a benefit that I know is written into law, and so is everybody else. And this program is very popular because it provides economic security to so many million of Americans, and they're counting on it in retirement, they're counting on it before they retire. And it's a widely popular program. But from Congress's perspective, it's really different. I mean, these politicians, show up in Washington and find out that they're on the hook for all the money that prior members of Congress borrowed. I mean, sure, a lot of them have been there for forever, but I mean, some of the money that Congress has to pay back for Social Security, I mean, that was like the 2002 Congress borrowed that money, and now the 2022 Congress is paying it back. So their experience of Social Security is like, this thing's a massive liability. Well, it's a massive liability to Congress because Congress borrowed from it. It's not a massive liability in Social Security's own finances. It has a shortfall. It is easily fixable. But Congress is kind of dragging its feet on fixing it because it has such a negative view of Social Security, like from their own personal experience in Congress, having to, wanting to spend on other programs, but having to spend to pay back what prior Congresses borrowed. So I think if you can understand those three things, I think you can get like where this almost like split personality that Social Security has in our political economy. That on the one hand, it's a very well structured, very well financed, incredibly well designed, efficient program that serves an enormous purpose in our economy. But on the other hand, it's a creditor. It's Congress's creditor. Congress has to pay them. And I just don't think people like their creditors. I mean, I don't love mine, but I think that creates a view of Social Security in Congress. Now, this is my hot take. I don't have many hot takes. I try to just use this platform to explain things. But if you stuck around for like nearly 7 minutes, I will tell you my hot take is that this is incredibly childish. And like, yeah, for members of Congress, if you need to hear it, this sucks for you. Other people in Congress got to like live off the fat of the land, spend money that they borrowed from Social Security, and now you're the member of Congress that has to like be responsible and pay it back. But there is no limitation or fatedness of all of any of this. We can easily pay for Social Security. You can easily pay it back. We just have to make better choices, and you don't get to make the same choices that people 25 years ago got to make. None of us do. You can do it. You can pay back Social Security. You can fix the program. You can do right by Americans, and you can make this right. But you don't get to have the same type of like live in large luxury that past Congresses did. And you know what? That's probably how a lot of young people today feel. You can do it.